I am going 6-0 in the division because the rest of the division sucks.
This is the best division in football, Tori.
Take that step back. We are seeing the true quarterback that he really is, which he is not a very good quarterback.
Welcome to the Man Now, where we taking over. It's time to give you them facts. Won't miss a game or two, cause we here for you and we reporting all of them stats. We coming to you live to keep you updated. Broadcast across the country, we the fan favorites. Break the volume to the max and don't nobody touch it. We cross the topics off the list, addressing every subject. So if you ain't got a clue, then you can tune in and give it 24 hours and we back again. Breaking news, new scoops, we the top dogs. From the fields to the courts, we report it all. Buzzer beat us through your speakers, we the ones to call. Trust us for the news if it's got a ball. Giving you the top stories cause we love the turf. Tell a friend to tune in and where you heard it first. Yeah, you're listening to the Man Now. We taking over, it's time to give you them stats. Yeah, you listen to the Man Now. Miss a game or two cause we reporting all of them facts. Yeah, you listen to the Man Now. We taking over, it's time to give you them facts. Turn the speakers up a little loud. Miss a game or two cause we reporting all of them stats. Cause you listen to the Man Hour.
And what is up, Man Hour Nation? Michael Buckhouse here with the Man Hour. Be sure to head over to manhour.co, new website out there, manhour.co, to get yourself some merchandise and, of course, check out the blog section as well. Hope you guys are ready for a special Sunday edition of Man Hour because I got the greatest draft guy out there. This guy will put peanut butter on bananas and then sprinkle it with the little pickles and call it cheese curds. And that is my man, Tori freaking Anderson. What's up, Tori?
Mel Kiper got nothing on me. My hair, already better than his.
Facts. Man, Tori, when I see sexy, I look at myself, I'm like, damn, I'm pretty sexy. But when I see you, I'm like, oh my God, I cannot wait to be 45 and look that damn good.
So I actually just updated my dating profile, and it says, dating me is kind of like your first car. I have high mileage. I'm a little bit older model. The body's got some dents and dings, and most likely I will embarrass you at an inopportune moment.
That is perfect. I would swipe right every time on that, Tori. 100%. But guys, we are here to talk some NFL draft with my man Tori Anderson. Tori Anderson is our draft expert over here at manhour.co, and he is going to give us some draft needs, some draft picks, and when we do our draft day special, he will be our guy that we kick it to all first round, telling them how bad their first round draft pick is. Because Tori, we were talking about bust a couple years, what was the last draft or two drafts ago, and you absolutely nailed it with Zach Wilson 100%. So guys, listen to this dude. He knows what he's talking about.
Really weird. Everything I kind of said about him, you guys all, well, I shouldn't say everybody, but BC called me crazy. Said this guy's going to be the best quarterback in this draft. And my motto all the way through the draft process was Zach and Mac are trash.
Right.
And granted, Mac tried to prove me wrong.
He tried. He did it.
He showed me he showed true colors this year. So, and everything I kind of said came to fruition with all that. And I still think that Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields are going to end up being the two best quarterbacks out of that draft.
Right, and it's definitely starting to shape up to become true here, guys. So we are going to do things a little bit different here on the Man Hour because we are live, raw, and uncut, and we are going to do the bottom four picks or the bottom four teams of this year's NFL draft. So Tori, I'm going to kick it to you. You're going to give me some of their draft needs, and who do you think they ultimately draft in the first round? Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Let's do this.
Okay, and then coming in at number 32 is obviously the Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. Tori, what are some of their draft needs this year?
Again, everybody keep in mind, this is obviously pre-free agency. This is pre-everything. But as of right now, this second, the Kansas City Chiefs have $525,000 in cap space. That's it. So obviously that's going to change. Some things are going to happen. We're going to have some movement. I'm basing everything off pre-March 1st, new calendar year right now. Obviously right now their number one need, because they don't have one, is a tackle. Orlando Brown Jr. is now a free agent. Mm-hmm. Who knows what kind of salary he's going to command. He's one of the better left tackles in the league. Ultimately, do I think that they re-sign him? Yes. Yes, I do. Number one need, though, is to solidify that line. When you've invested $500 million in your quarterback, you kind of want to make sure he doesn't get hit. So looking right now at potentially who might be available right around that 32 pick, there's a couple of names. Number one, Broderick Jones may or may not be there. I think he might go a little bit earlier, but I want you to keep an eye on two names that are kind of flying up draft boards right now and would most likely be there. One is the tackle out of Oklahoma, Anton Harrison. He is flying up boards right now. And the other one actually that I think is a really good fit and actually might be the pick would be Darnell Wright, the tackle out of Tennessee, because he can swing left or right tackle. So I'm going to tell you right now, Darnell Wright is kind of predicted. He was like a late day 2, maybe day 3 pick. He's now projected probably a late day 1 or early day 2 pick at this point. So I would tell you, keep an eye. If Orlando Brown Jr., for whatever reason, does not resign, keep your eye on him 110%. Probably their number one need just because of everything they got going on.
Yeah, so I definitely see your point there. But even if Brown Jr. does sign another franchise tag and gets paid, let's say $18 million a year, right? Because I think last year was like 16.5. But let's just say they do sign him. They still need to add depth to the offensive line, just because we saw the Dallas Cowboys do it. They built their line up from the draft, and they were arguably one of the most dominant lines in the NFL for many, many years. And now they're getting older, and now they're kind of scrambling, like, oh my God, what do we do, right? The Chiefs, just like you said, they do have that $200 million or $500 million quarterback in himself, in Patrick Mahomes, and we saw when he gets kept upright, many good things do happen. So I definitely do like that.
How many times was he sacked in the Super Bowl?
0, baby.
0.
Hey, actually, if you think about it, Jalen Hurts technically wasn't sacked either. It was just a couple rushes for losses, right? Which ultimately counts as a sack, which is kind of BS, but whatever. It is what it is, right?
But and if they decide not to go the tackle route, I think their next need is a safety. They got to solidify that back end of that defense. And, your safeties are basically your quarterback in the defense. This is a real thin draft, though, for when it comes to safeties. The one that's kind of sliding down boards right now that they were kind of thinking might go mid-first round is Antonio Johnson, the safety out of Texas A&M. He's sliding down a little bit. Potentially he could be there. Christopher Smith, the second, the safety out of Georgia, starting to move up a little bit. That's something else that they might want to take a look at as well. Again, at that point, it's all about the fit and everything else with their defensive scheme. But there again, it's another need on that team.
Yeah. So you are telling me that Justin Reed is not like the answer for Kansas City, or Juan Thornhill, I feel like they have one of the better secondaries in the NFL right now.
They do, but Reed's a free agent.
We just signed him last year. How's he a free agent already?
I'm pretty sure he's a free agent this year.
Good God, I should have looked at that.
You better check that. I think he's a free agent.
Damn.
And anytime you win a Super Bowl, other teams are going to be like, that guy must be pretty good.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They're going to overpay for Super Bowl players.
Right. Maybe Honey Badger can come back. I don't know.
Why didn't he'd want to leave that great situation in New Orleans, which we're going to get to eventually here?
Yeah. Any other thoughts on Kansas City before we move on?
Absolutely. So, kind of last thought: defensive line. This is a team that has a lot of young players, not a lot of cash. You are going to want to try to stock up and stockpile. This is a rotation league. Now keep your guys fresh and everything else. Again, name that's kind of been tossed around anywhere from mid-first round to late first round is Lucas Van Ness, the defensive lineman out of Iowa. I think he would be a really good plug-and-play type fit. There's not much on defensive line for this draft. Like there's just not.
Yeah.
When it comes to those like edge rushers, different story. Again, every team. I'm not going to cover a ton with edge rushers because every team always needs pass rushers. So are they going to be in there? Yeah. But Lucas Van Ness can really solidify, excuse me, that defensive line. And if you want to look at, edge rusher, which again, because as I just said, everybody needs them. Isaiah Folksy out of Notre Dame would be a name to keep on. And a guy that's sliding a little bit, which almost every draft you saw prior to this is Andre Carter. out of Army, and I don't know what's up with that. I don't know what's going on with that. I haven't got to research everything with him, but he's another name. Like right now, he's sliding down the talking second day now.
Well,
Potential top 10 pick.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but Army has the right now, or Army or Navy or any of those military schools have the right to say, no, you have to fulfill your 4 years in the military
No, 2
before
years. It's got to be 2 years.
Okay.
I think it's 2 years they got to do.
Okay.
So a lot of times they'll have to fulfill the 2 years, and that could well be, and that could be part of it, that maybe the Army has said, we're just not going to release you.
Yeah, which
pretty crappy thing.
Yeah, well, they did it last year to was it a wide receiver or a quarterback? I can't remember for sure. And they're like, nope, you got to be a sergeant or whatever. So
well, yeah, way back when the Green Bay Packers drafted a quarterback by the name of Ronnie McAdoo, they did the same thing. I mean, he had to go. He was an officer he had to go do his 2 years, and after 2 years they cut him loose. Yeah,
which is absolutely, I don't know. It is a life that you chose, and if you happen to be that good to make it to the NFL, you should have chose a different route, I guess. Like I don't know, like it is what it is. But Jim Powell is jumping in the chat here, and he says Andy Reid's systems works though. As much as I hate that it does, draft to the system and Carr would be a Super Bowl winning quarterback there. So Andy's system's offensive system works great, yes, but the defense is where the Kansas City Chiefs need help right now, Jim. Mm-hmm. And I'm just not sold on Spagnuolo. I mean, yes, the last 3 or 4 seasons, actually from like week 8 to week 9 on, they've been arguably the best defense in the league. But why doesn't that transfer to the first 8 weeks? Like I don't understand it. But I mean, if it's not broke, don't fix it, I guess, because 2 Super Bowls in 4 years, I guess, I don't know, it is what it is. Right?
Don't be that entitled person.
Right. Yeah, just
so in other words, don't be a Patriots fan.
Yeah, just don't just go suck the first 9 weeks of the season, and then like the last 9 you can come and be great.
But that's the thing, it doesn't matter as long as you get through and you make the dance. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
the New York Giants won 2 Super Bowls doing that when their defense caught fire.
Right.
The Indianapolis Colts won a Super Bowl that way because the defense caught fire.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter as long as it's at the end and you're the one holding the trophy.
It is all about getting hot at the right time. And speaking of getting hot at the right time, the Philadelphia Eagles were hot all season long, Tori, and they ultimately ended up being Super Bowl runners up to the Kansas City Chiefs. So their draft needs, Tori. I mean, drafting 31, where do you think they go?
Again, this one, the rich get richer. And again, we'll be talking about these guys once again. They do have a top 10 pick, and then they have the 31st pick. It must be nice to kind of have your choice of what you want. But for them, honestly, with this pick, again, running backs are devalued, these days in the NFL. And Bijan Robinson would make a ton of sense if they don't re-sign Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is a free agent. Boston Scott's a free agent. Somebody else is a free agent. I don't know. I think it might be Gainwell that's a free agent. That's your top 3 running backs. If you don't bring one of them back, you're probably looking at bringing in somebody. And honestly, Robinson is the complete back. I would venture to say I would let my running backs walk because there's just not the value on the running back anymore. It's going to be kind of that thing. And I think that at 31, Robinson will most likely probably still be there. And for them, honestly, it's a pick of luxury. So, right. When you got that, otherwise than that too, they got a lot of free agents on their defensive line that are gone. Again, all across their front 7, they're going to be able to need people because they got a couple of free agent linebackers, the defensive end, defensive tackle, anywhere in that front 7, I could honestly see them going. The other part then is starting to solidify their interior offensive line at guard and center as well, which could be a possible. Personally, I think that'll be a little bit later in the draft because you're not gonna waste that capital on an interior offensive lineman when it's more of a pick of luxury again at that point versus a pick of need. So to me, the most pressing need would be the running back position and the defensive, anywhere on the defensive line position. So I'm assuming they bring back Fletcher Cox, but
yeah. So Tori, a wise man once told me by the name of Wayne G never draft a running back in the first round. This is coming from a Patriots fan that they always draft great 3 through 7, right? So if this were to be a thing, which my man's naked, so if you guys see some sausage floating around, it is what it is. But if Jason Kelce is probably going to retire, right? The center for the Philadelphia Eagles. Like everything points to where he is going to be retiring. You don't want to go after a offensive lineman on that first pick of their first pick of the draft.
Again, they're a wild card because this is their second first round pick because they've got their through the trade with the who'd they get their top 5 pick or their top 10 pick from?
I'd have to go back and look. I don't know.
Was that from the New Orleans? They got it from New Orleans. Because when they traded, who is it? Who did they trade? But they're in the top 10.
It was from the Titans, isn't it? They got AJ Brown.
No, they would have gave that up to the Titans.
I don't know, man.
And they did that last year. They flipped that last year.
Let me pull it up. Coming unprepared. So they got it from New Orleans, pick number 10. Yeah, but I don't remember for who.
I was gonna say I thought it was in that Sauce. I thought they got Sauce Gardner and a first round pick, or not Sauce Gardner, but Gardner Johnson.
Yeah, I don't know who they got from there, but yeah, 10th overall pick for them. Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, I wish that would have happened the year that the Packers traded with the Saints and got an extra first out of them.
Right.
I mean, and like I said, at that point, it's a pick of luxury. And so normally would I say take a running back the first round? Probably not, just with the way the position is. But if it's something like that, where you kind of have the luxury and you've already got, a top 5 pick, why not? Why not take it? Because then you got, if you want, you got that person basically on a rookie deal for 5 years. So to me, again, pick of luxury. They've got a little bit more cap room. I think they got like 3.7 million in cap room. So they got a little bit more wiggle room. So again, they're probably going running back. That would be my guess because they can get a cheap rookie contract out of it on a potentially superstar running back.
So let me ask you this question here because I just realized this. They have the 10th overall pick and then the 31st overall pick. Obviously, the Chicago Bears are looking to either trade Justin Fields or get out of that first overall pick.
Which,
somehow.
if you ask me, is absolutely bonkers if they trade Justin Fields.
That's the rumor that's floating around.
I just talked to somebody else about this, and we were going over it. I said, I can't even believe this is an actual thing.
Yeah,
I said, but we also all thought there was no way Baker Mayfield was going number 1 overall a few years ago either.
True, but. If you were the Eagles, do you package those 2 picks and move up to a 6 or a 5 overall pick? Like, is there somebody that high that you could possibly want?
Not really. Again, you just won the NFC. You were 14-3.
Right.
You're probably not moving. If anything, you're moving down. You're going to listen to offers. You're going to stockpile draft picks because, again, being a Super Bowl champion, like we just said, or being in the Super Bowl, all of a sudden, I don't care what position you weigh, that person's paycheck is going up because, like, I went to the Super Bowl. I was an integral part of that. Right. You start losing people. At that point, if you're in a win now and we can do that, stockpile those picks. So, in all honesty, I could see them probably trading down the 10th pick, keeping the 31st, and maybe picking up another later first-round pick and then adding like a 3rd or a 4th-round pick with it.
Which that makes perfectly good sense to me, but there are 2 players on the offensive side of the ball that are going to be contracts up and not this year, but next year is Devontae Smith and AJ Brown. Do you possibly start looking at somebody as a receiver to replace those since, they're probably going to want some money?
Yeah. And again, I don't think so because you're probably going to retain one of them. And chances are if it's going to be anything, it's going to be AJ Brown just because of what you gave up to get him. You didn't give up a first-round pick just to get him for 2 seasons.
Right.
So, Devonta Smith, as much as I love him, he was a good fantasy receiver for me this year. He wasn't great because he was inconsistent, but there again, that's why I think if anything, they let him go because he was just inconsistent this year. He's fast, but that's all he's got. He doesn't have great strength as a receiver and anything else like that. Like he's just really fast and he can get around people.
Yeah,
He's a weaker version of Tyreek Hill.
As a Chiefs fan, let him go in free agency. We'll pick him up for $2 million and make him a MVP, right? Anything else you want to say about the Eagles before we move on to this 30th overall pick?
Nope. I think we kind of covered everything. Like I said, their focus, I think, primarily will end up being on the defensive side of the ball, though.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's kind of where, even though their defense was pretty good, but
look at their free agent list.
Right.
That's a laundry list of people. And when you've got $5 million in cap space, you better be able to rework some stuff. And you still have a quarterback that's on a rookie deal that's going to be probably asked for a little bit more money here rather soon.
Just a little bit.
Just a smidge.
So speaking of the 30th overall pick, it was initially the San Francisco 49ers, but via trade, a couple years ago, they get it. So the Saints now have the 30th overall pick. They are in some dire need of some everybody. Where did they go, Tori?
Honestly, if you trade that pick, if there's a prime trade prospect for the first round, it would not shock me in the least to see New Orleans trade. New Orleans is going to be awful for about the next 4 years. And I don't know if you saw the news today. Alvin Kamara was indicted by a grand jury on that stuff in Vegas.
Yep.
So that just threw his future all into a cloud. Because normally, if it's a grand jury indicting you, that's usually not a good sign.
Right.
That means 25 people got into a room and at least 13 said, "Yeah, charge them."
Yeah.
So that's usually not a good sign. This is what I think, because oddly enough, we were just talking about the rates. That when somebody gets charged by a grand jury, it's like 97% of people are found guilty when they get indicted by a grand jury. Really? So just because he's in the 1% doesn't mean he's going to end up in that 3%.
Right.
So, I mean, you might have to add running back to that, but again, everywhere their biggest needs obviously are going to be quarterback and wide receiver. Landry's probably gone. You know, he's kind of not the receiver he used to be. Michael Thomas obviously isn't the receiver he used to be either. He's also a free agent, so now you're already down your top two receivers. I'm not real confident going into my season with Traquan Smith like as my number one receiver. So, or what I suppose they got a Olave too. So, but still, the wide receiver they're going to have to replace that production. Quarterback is obviously a disaster there. They're $55 million over the cap. $55 million. For that does not bode well for the season because this is a team that's about to get stripped bare bones. And they have to. There's literally nothing that they can do about it. You are that far over the cap. They are going to cut a lot of people. Again, we're doing this, pre-March 1st. There's a lot of people that will either be reworked or they will just be outright released or potentially traded as well. The Saints might as well put an open for business sign on the front of their building because they are going to be selling off everybody, whatever they can for draft capital. On the defensive side, they need safety. They need defensive tackle. It seems to me like just kind of doing my research, defensive tackle, defensive ends are going to be real popular this year because it seems like a lot of teams kind of need help along that front. Granted, again, we still have free agency, so it's going to shore up some of them. But this is actually a really good draft. If you need defensive linemen, this is a really good draft to be in that situation.
Yeah, and we're starting to see like a 1-2 punch on the defensive front is becoming a big thing, right? You hammer Chris Jones, and then bada bing, bada boom, you bring in like Gay in there, right? So it's just keeping them fresh, and that is a huge thing for most teams moving forward. Any other needs besides everything for the New Orleans Saints?
Ideally, I think that they may go with somebody to try to be a kind of a running mate with Chris Olave. If it was me, just because I have a feeling that they're going to re-sign Andy Dalton for just like a 1-year deal. Because other than that, you're rolling with Taysom Hill, and now you're just basically running the Wildcat every play.
Yeah.
So I would say probably they would look at Josh Downs out of North Carolina, the receiver out of North Carolina, maybe Jackson Smith if he's around. I don't think he'll be there at that point. Otherwise, the other name I kind of been looking is Keyshawn Butte out of LSU. I think it's actually pronounced Boot, but I just call him Butte.
It's like Joe Dirte, right? Yeah, Joe Dirt. Well, I mean, like obviously the Saints are in dire need of some very, very. everything, right? So free agency, I was told by a very, very wise man, basically free agency should be your draft, and then the draft should just be adding pieces to your team to make it better. Do you think the Saints hammer out free agency really, really hard to fill all of these needs and whatnot?
No, just because, again, they don't have money. They have no money. If anything, they're looking for bargain bin free agents that are still sitting on the street in June. That's kind of the situation they're in. They are going to have to go the prototypical build through the draft until all this money kind of disappears and they actually have money to spend. Like I said, they are pardon my language, they're in cap hell. They are in straight salary cap hell because you that far in, that means you just overpaid for a lot of players that aren't going to be playing for your team probably this year. So they're already shopping Cam Jordan. They're shopping pretty much everybody. Marcus Davenport's probably not coming back. Again, you look at their free agents, who are they going to sign? Except for maybe Andy Dalton, because they could probably get him on the cheap. That's about it. Other than that, you're letting Michael Thomas walk. You're going to let Jarvis Landry walk. There's just not a lot of the talent you do have isn't talent you really want to bring back.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's some of the talent has been big cancer miss on the field and off the field. So as in Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas, unfortunately, winning.
I was gonna say we may be Alvin Kamara. Kamara's listed name of free agents because he may get cut.
Yeah, I mean, Chiefs will sign him all day, every day. So then coming in at the number 29th overall pick here, Tori, we do have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals ultimately lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in AFC Championship game. They have a lot of really not needs, but necessities that they're going to be adding to their team in the future because there are going to be a lot of people that want some money. So where do you think the Bengals go in this year's draft?
They're going to be defensive heavy. So they need a cornerback to play opposite Eli Apple. We don't know what's going to happen with Jesse Bates, so the safety is up there on my book because he was really not happy that he had to play under the tag this year and kind of fought even wanting to play it. Linebacker is going to be a big need for them. The other need then is running back. There's a lot of talk that Joe Mixon's going to end up being a cap casualty, and honestly, I could see him getting cut. Like, he just did not perform very well. P. Ryan actually probably performed better than Mixon did this year.
Yeah.
And so if they were going to bring one back, it's probably going to be P. Ryan. But at that point, again, it's like when you first start dating somebody, you might be talking to somebody else. And so there might be another running back in the mix there. Always got to have something on the back burner just in case.
Well, spoken like a true gentleman at 45 years old there.
Spoken like a true single person at 45 years old.
There you go. So besides defensive heavy and obviously running back, I feel running backs are kind of a dime a dozen, to be honest, in the NFL, unless you're an elite guy like a Saquon Barkley now, and Zeke's kind of fallen off that elite level as well. Is there a opportunity that they do draft a receiver because T. Higgins, Boyd, and Jamar Chase are all going to be coming up for contracts here very, very soon? And T. Higgins said he wants to get paid for sure, and he's the third guy on that team. Do you think they start going receiver anywhere in the draft?
Not in the first round. Maybe later in the draft. They're going to re-sign two of those three guys, and I would say T. Higgins is probably going to end up being the man out because Jamar's your number one, and Tyler Boyd's a little bit older and will probably come a little bit cheaper. Where T. Higgins could be a really solid number two on another team, but he's going to command number one money, and teams aren't going to give it. I mean, I liken that to the T.J. Houshmandzadeh.
Yeah,
like he was a great number two receiver, went to the Seahawks, got paid like a number one, and performed like a number four. Then at that point, because there's a big difference between being the number two and number one receiver on a team.
Exactly. So we were actually just talking about the Saints and some of the casualties that they'll be having for free agency. Do you think the Bengals would possibly pick up somebody like a Michael Jones or a Jarvis Landry or any of those?
I don't think so. Those two are not. The only way they're getting is if they're coming in on veteran minimum with very heavily incentivized contracts, because both battled injuries. Like they're both injury prone. So at that point, it's going to be games played, catches, touchdowns. Like it's going to be a very heavy incentive contract because the production just wouldn't match the value that you're getting almost no matter what, unless it was veteran minimum.
Okay, so let me ask you this one question before we wrap up the show here, this first edition of our NFL Draft Talk as we prep for the NFL Draft coming up here April 27th, I think it is, right? We'll be live in Chicago at 119 Bourbon Street. Tori, you'll be remote on location like with us, so you'll be looking snazzy with that beige background and whatnot, with the blue shirt.
No, I will be in Green Bay for the draft, so.
There you go. Are you wearing your Packers jersey?
I take that back. No, God, no. No. So Thursday night for the first round, I should say. I will actually. This will be the background.
Sweet. I'm
Friday
excited
after
about
work.
it. So we are in Chicago, so I want you to wear your Packers jersey. Just make sure.
No. I'll be suited up. It is draft night, baby. I am a GM.
All right.
I am not a player. I'm a GM.
There you go. I love it.
Up.
So out of those bottom 4 picks, Kansas City at 32, Philly at 31, the Saints at 30, and Bengals at 29. Do you see any of those 4 trading out of those spots?
Again, New Orleans prime candidate to do it. I could see Kansas City doing it because obviously the lower you get drafted, the less money you are guaranteed, the less the contract, stuff like that. I don't see Philadelphia really moving out unless, like you said, they decide that they're moving up. But it would really have to be, if anything, I could see them potentially jumping Cincinnati if Robinson's still on the board, just because Cincinnati might be looking for a running back as well. So, and again, that will all dictate, if Joe Mixon gets cut, yeah, if I'm the Eagles, I'm probably offering my 31st pick to whoever's kind of just in front of them and say maybe trade up to 25 just so if you really get your eye on Robinson, yeah, do it. Kansas City, I would see if they did it, just to save some money. New Orleans should trade it because they're going to need all the draft picks they can get on the cheap. It's the nature of the beast at that point. Cincinnati, I really don't see trading out unless they get an offer that kind of blows them away. They're kind of sitting in a good position. Just because of their needs are kind of all right around, there's not really a highly rated player that's going to be a complete game changer. Their positions kind of fall right into there. So at linebackers are like Trenton Simpson from Clemson is the number 1 rated linebacker, and he's 26 overall. So he still kind of fits right in there. Christian Gonzalez is the corner I was looking at that Cincinnati might take a look at too. So.
Yeah, so the good thing about the Kansas City Chiefs is they do have a plethora of picks coming up here because of the Tyreek Hill trade. Are there any quarterbacks to add that you see that are second-day quarterbacks that could possibly slide up into that, like the Lamar Jackson thing, right, where the Baltimore Ravens traded for that 32nd overall pick to get that 5th-year option? Do you see any of those quarterbacks that possibly a day 2 that could possibly slide up into that number 1 seed, maybe for a Saints or something?
The only one I could potentially see might be Hendon Hooker, just because he's coming off of injury.
Right.
Nobody really knows how he's going to respond to that. But even at that, he's the 61st ranked prospect at this point. Nobody's really going to know till his pro day.
Right.
Or because I don't think he's going to do the combine because he's still rehabbing the knee.
Mm-hmm.
So he might. The only thing you might see is what he has at his pro day, and at that point you're going to kind of get an idea. I mean, if he plays like he did last year before he got hurt, that's a 1st round pick.
Right.
So there might be a team that might go up and do it, like the Saints that say, "Screw it, we're going to do it." Again, when Willis McGahee blew his knee out, there's nobody thought he'd go the 1st round, and then was the
Buffalo Bills, wasn't it?
Was it the Buffalo Bills traded up to get him in the mid 1st round?
Yeah.
Okay, and his was a devastating injury.
Right.
Otherwise, I could see if he falls and he's still there, I could potentially see maybe even an Anthony Richardson there. But there's a lot of talk with him that he's kind of moving up a lot of boards as
right.
well, and he might go in the top 15. So I don't really see him. The fall off is pretty great after Hooker, Tanner McKee out of Stanford. Jared Hill, the one that I might is Max Duggan. Max Duggan is kind of flying up boards right now as well. He went from basically almost undrafted to probably a 4th or a 5th round pick. But again, he might still fly up some boards too, but I don't see him flying up that far.
Well, he is also only a 1-year starter at TCU, if I'm not mistaken, as well. Like he was like third or fourth string to start the season. Yeah.
And we know my thoughts on 1 year of tape.
Yeah. So, well, for the people that are new, let the people know about your 1 year of tape. What are your thoughts about 1 year of tape?
So I am not a fan of 1 year of tape. I liken it to a 1 year wonder. And Zach Wilson, 110%, is a walking example of that. People fell in love because he played in a terrible conference and he could just chuck it deep every time. He threw a nice deep ball, but he doesn't have great touch. He can't read a defense. And everything else. And everybody's like, but he was great. He had this great year. No, that's awesome. He also does not have the intangibles. And again, it's stuff that we went over. Look at the way his teammates reacted to him. Look at the way he interacted with his teammates. Watching those things. And he did not display any leadership qualities whatsoever. And these are all things I pointed out prior to the draft. And then it showed up on film when he got to the NFL. Him playing versus like Mike White or another quarterback playing where the teammates got excited. Him, nobody went near him. So at some point, you really have to take a look at the mirrors. So I'm not a big fan of 1 year on tape. Now, if you're playing at an LSU, Joe Burrow, completely different because your competition level completely different. It's not NFL speed, but it's pretty damn close. So, and you're playing in the SEC and you did what you did, completely different because you have proven against absolutely top-notch competition that you can handle it. That's a completely different book in my opinion.
All righty. So Michael Jackson says it is time to look at the man in the mirror and move on for the day, Tori. So any closing thoughts before we head out and talk to you next week about picks 28 through 24, right? Any thoughts moving forward?
Tune in next week. Every week I'm going to kind of have it. Again, this is going to be a work in progress because obviously we got free agency coming up here in about 2 weeks.
Yep.
Once free agency hits, everything's going to change, and like everything I just talked to you about today could be completely different by then.
Yeah, so guys, just stay tuned. Myself and Tori will. Tori, does Fridays work better or does Sunday afternoons work better? What works better for you, man?
Sundays actually work better for me. Sunday. Since the XFL is on Saturday, come here to Man Hour, manhour.co. I need to fix that website. And talk NFL draft on Sunday, baby. Let's do it, Tori. You have a good night. Let's do it.
Guys, that is it for today's show. Thank you from my man Tori for tuning in. You guys have a great weekend. See you Monday night, 10 p.m. East Coast time. Have a great rest of the Sunday, and love each other.